Hello and welcome everybody to another StarCraft 2 cast by Glitch. Today I'm going to be casting for you a best of 3 from the most recent GIGABYTE Cup, and spawning here in the 1 o'clock position as the Teal Terran. Playing from Team Rain we have Artist. Spawning here in the 2 o'clock position, his opponent today is going to be the Blue Terran. Spawning in the 2 o'clock position, nfteamBreach. Alrighty, so I'm casting this series of games today because I'm actually interested in watching a little bit of Artist's play. Artist is a player that I know about. He's from Korea, like I already said. He's on Team Rain, and I just don't know that much about his playstyle or anything, and I'm really curious to see his TVT. I always feel like looking at mirror matchups is a pretty good way of examining a player's skill level as well as his style, just because when you're going up against another player that's going to have the same type of units as you, it's going to be expansion timing as well as how aggressive you are can really reflect your playstyle quite a bit, because it matters quite a bit in mirror matchups. So, going to be taking a peek into Artist style here today. Like I said, this is going to be game 1 of a best of 3, and this is going to be on Shattered Temple. So it looks like Artist is going to be taking a very, very fast gas so far. Notice he has not yet thrown down a barracks so far, just thrown down a supply depot, going straight for that gas. So that's going to get him a lot of early gas. He could potentially be going for some maybe early stim timings, or could just be going for a really, really early factories for some very early mech play. In TVT, it is becoming much, much more common these days to go for that mech play, going for maybe that Hellion siege tank instead of the traditional Marine siege tank. Looks like nfteamBreach has gone for a similar build actually, as both players got up that early gas. Breach is actually doing a very, very similar thing right now. Has a barracks now coming down, very similarly timed to Artists. If we check out the production tab, we can see that both of these players pretty much identical there. Food count also very, very similar right now, as the harvester counts are just about identical. Breach just a little bit behind in SCVs right now. Looks like Artist might be about 1 ahead, and looks like he is going to be getting up a slightly earlier orbital command, however. As we can see, Artist is just now starting his, going to be a little bit behind on that orbital command. Both players now producing a Marine to send to the front of their ramp. Both players have scouted the other and are aware, I believe. Yeah, both players know the timing on each other's bases. Will know by now that they have gone for identical builds. And there we go. Now we do have a reactor now coming down on this barracks for Artist as the factory comes up. So we are going to be seeing some Hellion play here, I think, out of Artist. And very similarly in the base of Breach, we see the exact same build still going on right now. Reactor coming up on that barracks, factory coming up as well, going to be swapping that on very soon. So both these players looks like are going to be going for Hellions. So in that case, it is just going to come down to control. Control is what is going to be absolutely critical, because if you have Hellions and your opponent has Hellions, of course, well, you both got Hellions, so you're both going to have to control them well if you're going to want to win that fight. But there are 2 different kinds of Hellions that they could be going for. And this is where they could deviate. In that you could be getting 2 or 4 Hellions just to be poking at the front, trying to see if you can't do some damage, maybe doing a little bit of drop play. But of course there are the other kind of Hellions where you are going mass Hellions and getting tons and tons of Hellions, and they are going to be pretty much there to support your siege tanks. So going to see if both these players are going to be going for just a couple of Hellions, or whether they're going to be going for more than that. We currently see 4 Hellions on the way here for Artist, and it looks like so far 2 Hellions on the way for Breach. He has now swapped his factory off of that reactor, and he's now swapped that barracks onto the reactor. So looks like he is just going to be getting those few Hellions for that early game scouting, while Artist is going to be sticking up for a little bit, sticking around for a few more Hellions. Both players has now thrown down a starport, and interestingly enough, Breach has gone for a very early medevac, so we could be seeing some early drop timing play here. Artist using a barracks to scout up onto the high ground, while his Hellions down on the low ground toast a bunch of those Marines. I like that play there from Artist. He's not going to be using that barracks though, so he's going to be transitioning, and we finally have some deviation between these 2 players' styles, as we can see that now Breach is going to be relying a little bit more on Marines and just a couple of Hellions to take out any of his opponent's Marines, and maybe getting a little bit of scouting information in, while Artist is going to be transitioning strictly into what looks like right now to be factory starport units. We're going to have quite an interesting mix here. Breach looking like he's actually starting to push out of his base. He does have an SCV in the mix to repair up these Hellions. Is he going to be going for for a drop onto the high ground. I think that's exactly what he's going to be doing, something similar to the Slayer's build that was popularized several months ago. And yes, we do see now all the Marines now being loaded up onto the high ground. An Artist, I don't think he actually sees this. That is just barely in the vision there. We do have one Viking that's going to be dropping down into the mineral line here of Breach, and here we go. The drop is now down in the main, and he's going to be picking up the weak Hellion. Love that play there, as it looks like that Hellion still hasn't been picked off, and it is going to survive to do some more damage. And oh no, all the SCVs have now been pulled off the line here for Artist. They are trying to do some damage, but so many drones going down right now. So many workers killed for both of these players, but keep in mind that there is that one Viking in the base of Breach also doing some damage and some harassment there. So holy cow, that was a lot of workers killed there for Breach. Breach so far killed a lot more workers, 17 workers killed to Artist's 4. So Artist is really going to need to push and do some damage here. If we check out the Harvester count right now, we can see that the Harvester count is 10 to 19 right now, and Breach still in the base, kind of has a little bit of base control. Or rather, Artist has some base control here over Breach. There are currently 3 Vikings in the base from Artist, and he hasn't gotten that many worker kills, but he's been doing a lot of damage so far, and now his Hellions are going to be in the base. They are going to get in. Hellions now being pulled off the line from Breach. It looks like Artist might actually be able to come back from losing that many workers, as so many Hellions and a couple of Vikings are going to be very, very hard for Breach to be able to hold. Looks like more damage is being dealt. More SCVs now being pulled off the line here for Breach to try to stop this push, but there are still a lot of forces out here for Artist. He's continuing to deal lots of damage. Breach is losing lots and lots of workers. If we check out the Harvester count right now, 12 Harvesters to 10. Amazingly, Artist is actually ahead in the Harvester count, 12 to 9 right now. So Artist actually pushing back and actually dealing the damage that he really, really needed to do, continuing to stream Hellions into his opponent's base right now. In the base right now of Artist, we see that factory continuing to pump out Hellions. We see more Vikings being produced by Artist, and Hellions are continuing to be very, very annoying in the base of Breach right now. Breach is still continuing to produce a lot of Marines here to try to take out these Hellions. These Hellions do fairly well against Marines, but of course in these very small Hellion numbers, like only one Hellion is going to have a lot of trouble taking out a lot of Marines. But it looks like more forces are still continuing to stream out from Breach, and I think he is actually going to be able to defend this, despite Artists continuing to apply pressure, continuing to be in the base of Breach right now, continuing to just apply some light pressure to the production structures here of Breach. Breach, though, I think he's actually going to be able to hold this very, very shortly. As we can see, Artist continuing to just stream more forces across the map. I don't know what Breach is going to be able to do to hold this. As more Hellions arrive, he's going to have a lot of trouble. These Marines are only going to do so well against these Hellions. The Hellions are going down, and he's keeping the Hellion numbers low, but this Viking is continuing to be very, very good, actually. This Viking so far, 5 kills on that Viking. And it looks like Team Breach actually going to be GGing out of Game 1, meaning that we are going to be going into Game 2 to see if he can come back in Game 2 and push this to a Game 3. So stick with me, guys. Game 2 between Breach and Artist in just a moment.